Okay, today we're going to take a look at an old monitor that I've had. This is probably about 10 or 12 years old, maybe even longer. See if I can find a date on it, so it's a ViewSonic 1080p 27-inch monitor, and I used it for about 8 years, and an issue started happening where when you turned it on, it would take a long time to turn on. It would turn on for about 10 seconds and then go black, and then turn on for about 10 seconds, then go black. And sometimes it would turn on after a few times of that cycle and it would stay on. But it got to a point where the black cycle of it would just stay for about a minute or two, and it wouldn't stay on for a long time. So I got a new monitor. I kept this one. I thought maybe I could repair it. When I opened it up initially, before I actually bought a new monitor, I thought maybe I could open it and see if there was something wrong with it, blown on it easily. And the conclusion I came to was there are a few capacitors on here that aren't quite blown, but they do have puffed up breaker portions on them. So I'll zoom in and we can take a look at this here, or I'll show you the second camera footage here. So you should be able to see here that we have a few of these capacitors. So for instance, this one here, this top is still perfectly flat. And this one here, you can see that it's bowed up a little bit. So we have this one here that's bowed up a little bit. We have this one here that's bowed up a little bit. This black one here. And we have this one here that's bowed up a little bit. This one here. And then we also have this large one here. It seems to be all of the same brand of capacitor that has worn out or become end of life. So I've gotten some new capacitors to replace these ones. All of these other ones here, this green one, this green one here, they all seem pretty fine. This very large one, it seems fine as well. So what we're going to do is we're going to replace 4 capacitors here, or 5. So 5 capacitors actually. It's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, and then over here 5. And then we'll see if that fixes the issue. If that fixes the issue for these 5 capacitors, so we're looking at 1, 2, 3, 4, and then this one is 5. So we've got some capacitors from DigiKey. I ordered them, they came the next day. They should be equal to the 5 that we have here, with an extra one for the large one. They should fit. They're the same capacity, the same rating as the ones that are on here, and we'll replace them. So we'll detach this board from here. We'll detach these connectors. We'll unscrew this. We'll put it into the helping hands, and the helping hands that I reviewed, you'll see a link up here. We'll get it attached and we'll desolder these and solder on the new ones. So let's do that. We'll test it out right now. Hopefully we'll be able to see what's going on with it. I'll get a power plug and we'll plug in something here. We should probably not even need to plug anything into it. We should just be able to power it on and you can see. So let's take a look at that. Okay, so let's plug this guy in. So we'll zoom out, and I don't know if you'll be able to see here, but just here there's a small red light indicating that we've powered it on. So let's turn it over and we can see our power indicator here. So if we push the power indicator to turn it on, we get a blue light, and we should get some sort of output from the screen here, but we get nothing. Even pushing the menu buttons or the input 1 and 2, we don't really get anything. Okay, so I went and I got a VGA cable. You'll be able to see it coming out of the bottom here. So I plugged in a VGA cable. We're gonna plug that into an old PC that I have laying around, and at least we should get some sort of signal to see if it powers on. So let's take a look at that. Camera's having a hard time focusing. So our old PC is plugged in. The VGA is plugged in on this. Let's give it a power button and okay, so we see that it was detected. The blue light has detected some sort of input for the monitor, but the monitor display doesn't light up or display anything. So what we'll do is we will swap out the capacitors for the new ones, and then we will see if the screen then turns on properly once we plug it in and test it again. So we'll leave it running for a couple, maybe a minute. We'll see if the monitor actually does end up turning on. Maybe we'll power cycle it a couple times here. So I don't know if you can catch that, but whenever we power it on, there's like a very dull flicker, like it's trying to come on and it just doesn't have enough power to do it. So right here, right there. And then when I push the power button, there's a little flicker of, I don't know if it's light or just the LCD screen powering on or off. So let's change out those capacitors, see if it works. This is going to be the power supply of the unit. It's pretty dangerous to be messing around with this kind of stuff. You'll want to short out these capacitors before we do anything with them. So we'll make sure we do that. We'll unplug all these connectors and stuff like that. Make sure our capacitors are drained. Then we'll do our soldering. So let's do this. We will get this board unscrewed. And we can see that it is connected to this board here. So we'll, as we lift it, we'll kind of just wiggle it free from this secondary board here. And there we go. That's our board. Okay, so before we work on the board, we want to discharge the capacitors on it. So what we're going to do, we're going to find the largest capacitor. That's going to be this guy here. So we'll take a look on the back of the board. We'll find the prongs, or actually we could probably just do it right here. We will short it out with a screwdriver. Make sure you have a screwdriver with a plastic handle and you are isolated completely from touching the metal of the screwdriver. And all we're going to do is touch the two prongs of the capacitor together and short them out. Okay, so nothing's happened and that capacitor should be good. There is another capacitor over here we can take a look at. We'll touch those two together. Sometimes you'll get a spark out of them, sometimes you won't. So I don't think a lot of these capacitors are holding a lot of charge, and therefore we're not getting much out of it. But I think we should, once we've shorted this one out, if you want, you can take a look at, say, this capacitor here. We can see that the two prongs come out right there. We can short those. Oh, see, we got a little spark out of that one. Made me jump. And we can take a look at a couple other capacitors here. So this one had a little bit of charge in it. Let's take a look at this green one here. And we can see that that's these two here. Nothing out of that one. And it looks like that's all of the large capacitors. So we got one spark. This should be okay to work on now. So we will hook this up to the helping hands and we will desolder some of these capacitors and we'll get our new ones in. All right. So here we are. I've marked out with some marker the 5 capacitor spots that we're going to desolder. So we've got one here, one here, one here, one here, and one over here. My iron's heating up. I've got a cheap $4 iron. It's a piece of junk. I've been meaning to get a better one, but I don't think I do enough soldering to really invest maybe over $30. If you have a good one that's under $30 Canadian, shoot me a link in the comments. I'll take a look. So while the iron heats up, I'm going to prepare over here. We've got some flux, some 1mm solder. We have our capacitors. Okay, and we're almost there. So we should be able to melt some of the solder that's on this board. Not yet, still not hot enough. Iron's still not hot enough. We'll give it a few more minutes and I'll get my solder tape to clean up. Okay, so we've got some solder wick and our iron tip should be nice and hot now. So let's see if we can add a little bit of solder to them. Maybe that will help with it melting. So the only other soldering iron I have is an automotive one and it's way too big. So we will order one on Amazon and we'll continue this project once we get a new soldering iron that's better than a $4 one. Okay, so we have our new soldering iron. This is the Koto KT68P and it's getting warm here. Okay, so it's nice and hot. So let's see if this one will melt our solder points. So we're after these two right here. 1, 2. So all I'm doing here is adding a little bit of lower temperature solder to the joint so that it can mix with the solder that's on the joint and then soaking at it. Okay, there goes our first capacitor, just fell out. Perfect. So that was this guy here. Okay, the next one we'll go to is this guy here. We'll apply some lower temperature solder and then we'll soak it up with the copper wire. Okay, we're just having a little bit of camera trouble there. It's all sorted out. Let's continue on. So we've almost got this guy out here. Let's see if we can push this one out. I think we can. There we go. Okay, we'll move on to the next one. Yeah, I'll apply some heat. Get a little more solder wick and we will soak these guys up. Alright, so this one should be out, just hasn't fallen out. Then we have this one here and this one here. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So let's get our new ones and put them in. So the first one that we will replace is going to be this guy here. So we can see a plus and a negative. We're going to line up our negative side with the negative hole and we're going to pop those through there. And we'll bend it over just like it was. Hold it down. We'll bend our legs open on the back so that it stays in place just like this. Put it in our board and we will solder it down. So that's this guy right here. So I'll just grab some flux paste. We'll put a bunch on there and we'll hit it with our iron and solder it down. So we put some solder paste on there, that's the red liquid, and we'll heat this up and we'll solder it down. Okay, there's one. So you want to make sure that you're heating the through hole, the via, and the leg so that the solder flows into there nicely. Okay. Okay. Then the next large capacitor that we have. Okay, so the next capacitor is going to be this large one that went here. So we'll take a large one here and we will match up the holes. So the negative side of the capacitor, the gray line, is going to go on the gray line there, and this one stood straight up. Okay, so that's going to be this guy right here. And then we have 3 small ones remaining. It's going to be this one here, and this one over here. So we'll do this one here next with one of our small capacitors. Yeah, that's going to be this guy right here. Okay, so the next one we're going to get is right down inside of there. And that's another small one, and that's going to be this guy right here. Okay, and we have one more right here. Okay, so that's this one here. So we've got all our fresh caps. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And we'll plug this into our monitor and we will see if it's done the trick. I hope so. If not, then I don't think I'll be able to repair this. If it does work, that would be awesome. That would be another 27-inch monitor to make use of. Okay, so we have our board here. We've got a toothbrush and some cotton swabs. We're gonna clean it up a little bit. So this is just rubbing alcohol. And we're just working on getting the flux paste off. Okay, I think that does it. So the next step is to go ahead and we'll plug it into our monitor and we'll see if it powers on or if it explodes. Okay, here's our monitor. Let's get our screwdriver out so we can place these screws in. We'll get all these connectors connected. Okay, and then we need this connection to go into this connector here. Perfect. Okay, we have our connectors connected, so we should be ready for some power, and hopefully it doesn't fizzle out and explode. Let's give it a try. Okay, so far looks okay. So let's flip it over and see if we have power. Yay! Look at that. We did it. Let's plug in a display and we'll get it started and I'll show it to you then. Okay, so this comes with a back cover. we'll get this on. I disconnected these 4 cables because they'll go through the slots here on the side so that this cover fits over. So that just sits down like that and allows the power, the audio, and the DVI port to be exposed. And we can plug these in through these side ports here. Okay. And then we have 4 screws to put in. Do that. A little bit strange, but this one is ever so slightly longer than all the other ones. Okay, all of our screws are in. Everything's nice and firm. We'll get our back panel on. Clear out some of these cobwebs. This has been sitting around for a long time. We've just got 2 small screws here for these corners here. Okay, so I think we can plug this guy in and give it an output and see if we get a display. Okay, so we just tested this out on a known good working machine that has good known working output, and it worked great. Turned on right away, detected the input. So what we're gonna do now is we're gonna attach the stand. Look at this thing. It has a dock for an iPhone or an iPod, and it has a little speaker output there. Got some microphone input, a headphone input, volume rocker, a USB hub. This thing back then was legit. It was one of my favorite monitors. This USB hub did a lot. The microphone did well for a crappy microphone, but it worked. It was a microphone. So we're going to reattach this to the monitor at the bottom here. I don't know if you'll be able to see that. But it connects here, like so. And then we will have a monitor. So you can see the back of this thing. It's got power. So it's got a powered USB hub. That's the input, some audio inputs, and another USB port for the back. So let's get this thing connected. So if you're wondering about this monitor came apart about 6 years ago, 7 years ago. And I didn't have any parts trays or magnetic trays. So I ended up just, as I take out screws, you just get a piece of cardboard, you push them with your thumb through, or you poke a small hole and you push it through there, then you label it, and they all stay in there pretty good, and it's just a scrap piece of cardboard. So this can toss out, and the screws stay in there actually pretty good. They've all stayed in there for the past 6 years, and this thing's been moved around. So if you need a little tip on where to store a lot of screws and label them, just an old piece of cardboard will work. So now that that monitor is all fixed, I hope this video has encouraged you to take on some repairs yourself. Don't throw out your electronics if you think maybe you can repair them. This took me a long time to repair just because I didn't have time or the resources, and it only took me about an hour to repair total. So this just goes to show that if it's broke, it doesn't mean you can't fix it. With a little bit of courage, I think you can do it too. Thanks for watching. Bye.